Hey there. Welcome to the Practicing Connection podcast. I'm Coral. Today we'll be talking about cultivating an engaged attitude. It's a key to building commitment and advancing group projects, and Jessica is going to be sharing a practice with us. Jessica, how's your week going?
Hey, Coral. I'm doing pretty well this week. As I started to think about this topic, I realized that most of the time I stay on track and maintain good momentum, kind of chugging along. But like anyone, there are times when I just don't feel as engaged, or I get distracted, or I notice that I'm participating mostly because it's what's expected in that moment. I have a feeling that those moments happen for a lot of people, maybe everyone. And it's just kind of part of the normal rhythm of work. But I've been thinking about it quite a lot this week as we've been preparing for this.
I really, as always, appreciate you sharing that. I think everyone cycles between, various levels of focus and autopilot. And it actually really makes me appreciate those moments when something shifts, either for myself or someone else. And suddenly we're all a little bit more invested again, right? So maybe this is actually kind of one of the more honest ways to begin this conversation about engaged attitudes today.
By not claiming that we're engaged all the time.
All the time, yeah.
No, exactly. I think that part of cultivating an engaged attitude means noticing those moments and kind of getting a little curious about what helps us reconnect, or even just admitting that today I'm here because I should be, which I know we just talked about this, right? Don't do things just because you should, but just showing up is okay sometimes, especially if you notice that, like, you know what, today I'm just showing up. So sometimes starting there is the most authentic choice we can make.
Absolutely. And as always, we do love to extend the invite to you all, our listeners, to let us know what's inspiring you. So you can always drop us a note via email at practicingconnection@oneop.org. We do see and respond to every message, and we can't wait to hear from you this week. All right. That honesty gives us such a great starting point for today's conversation, Jess. Let's learn a little bit more about cultivating an engaged attitude. And can you tell us a little bit more about the practice you're going to be sharing today and why you chose it specifically?
Yeah, of course. I really wanted to focus on rotating ownership today, rotating roles more specifically in meetings, rather than just kind of asking everyone to be engaged and giving tips on how to do that. Although I do have a few tips on that, because I've noticed that when the groups I've worked with switch up who takes the lead, so whether that's running a meeting, guiding a discussion, sharing observations and feedback, running different parts of a project, it's a really small but powerful way to get everyone involved at different times. And so teams with shared leadership roles can see more commitment and more creativity and stronger group bonds because the work isn't just falling on a few people. It kind of gives each person a real stake in the group's progress. And as I've noticed myself, sometimes stepping up or supporting someone else as they step up, which I think is really important. Sometimes just stepping up or supporting someone is exactly what helps you move out of autopilot and kind of back into engagement. And like we talked about in the opening, there are days when you're not leading and it would be easy to tune out. But in those moments, engagement might mean, it might mean showing up, right? We have those days. But it might mean also paying closer attention, asking a question, giving genuine shout out to someone who's trying something new, or just supporting the person taking on a leadership role by trusting their process and participating fully in it. So rotating ownership, I think, can help everyone reconnect, whether you're upfront or in a support role.
I love this idea of this practice. So how to actually go about it, Jess, could you walk us through how a team might try this?
Yeah, absolutely. So this is 2 steps with a third optional step. The first step is to actually rotate leadership. So you could rotate leadership for parts of a project, for meetings, or even for individual meeting agenda items or roles. But let's focus on a standing meeting. The easiest way to do this is to set up a schedule and rotate the meeting facilitation. Even if it's just for a 15-minute standing meeting, the meeting facilitator's job is going to be to ensure that you connect to the meeting's purpose and guide the agenda. Basically, the meeting facilitator would engage fully with the why and the how of the meeting. Even if all you do is rotate who the meeting facilitator is for your meetings, it has the potential of having really big benefits. And a couple of tips. If it's your turn to be the leader, you might consider preparing a discussion point, a reflection prompt, or just simply checking in with the group on something meaningful. Or you might consider asking for feedback, inviting the quiet voices, right? That's a tip for facilitation. If there's always one or two people who are speaking up, make sure those who aren't speaking up as much have some space too. And make sure to model openness. So you could ask others and you could share yourself. What are your hopes about this project? Or what could make our work together smoother? Okay, step 1 is really just the rotating leadership. Step 2, if it's not your turn to be the leader, you're going to practice presence. If you aren't leading or facilitating, you still have ownership over your presence. Again, sometimes we recognize, sometimes just showing up is all you can give that day. But most of the time, you're going to be able to challenge yourself to bring 2 unique things. First, maybe a question or reflection. So this means asking an honest question, sharing maybe a brief observation or appreciation, presenting a creative solution, or voicing a hope for the team's process, even if it's really tiny. And then the second thing that you could challenge yourself to bring is genuine appreciation, right? So this means that you could actively watch and listen for opportunities to celebrate wins or share appreciation for something a team member did or said during the meeting or in their recent work. And if you're stuck on that, if you're like, I didn't hear anything, you could start by acknowledging the person leading, right? So thanks for guiding us through this. Or, I like the angle that you're bringing, or I enjoyed the way you facilitated the reflection. Whatever that is, that's where you could start. So challenge yourself to either ask a question or reflection and share a genuine appreciation, or do both of those things for a bonus. So this step is really about pushing yourself gently to kind of move from passive to present. Sometimes all it takes is a thoughtful comment or a gesture of support to be engaged. And what those 2 things are doing, the rotating of the facilitation role in a meeting and the others who are not facilitating or leading the meeting, making a point to be engaged in one of those 2 ways, it's really helping to build a culture, a team or a group culture that is engaged. Okay, step 3 is the optional step. I think it could be really powerful if you choose to do this, but I know that not all teams, like this would not be something that you would have the time to do always, but if you can do it, I think it would be awesome. So at the end of the meeting, take a moment or think through this yourself. Take a moment with your team members or think through this yourself. How did it feel to lead or to intentionally support the leader? Right? You guys can discuss this, or you could just think about that. So how did it feel to lead or to intentionally support the leader? Did rotating roles nudge you out of autopilot even briefly? And maybe what new perspectives or creative ideas surfaced? Did anyone seem more present? It's okay if engagement doesn't look or feel dramatic. Just being a little more present, a little more open can bring momentum over time.
I just love this, Jess. And it really is so flexible depending on what sort of structure and culture your team has. There's something that I think every person can take away from this. And it also reminds me of what you shared at the top of today's episode about sometimes just chugging along until you're pulled into action. The rotating roles and even just the active noticing and participation, it just means everyone has moments to be seen, step up, even if it looks different each time.
Yeah. And, because it looks a little different every time, some really rich discussions and ideas can come out of it that maybe wouldn't have happened otherwise.
100%. So first off, I do want to say just thank you so much for sharing today's practice. And we want to thank you all, our listeners, for joining us for today's episode as well. If you did enjoy today's episode, click the share button in your podcast app to share it with a friend or a colleague. Be sure to tune back in next week. We'll have a new episode and a new practice for you. And until then, you know what it is. Keep practicing.
The Practice Missing Connection podcast is a production of OneOp and is supported by the National Institute of Food and Agriculture, U.S. Department of Agriculture, and the Office of Military Family Readiness Policy, U.S. Department of Defense, under award number 2023-48770-41333.